You know, there's something refreshing about the blue-haired anime swordsman saying, "No, I'm not going to pick up a greatsword," and instead wielding a sword and shield and holding the line himself. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel.
Unicorn Overlord.
Hello everyone. If you enjoy what I do, my coverage of Unicorn Overlord, strategy RPGs, or just games and commentary in general, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. In our ongoing series covering some of the early game units that you can expect to find in Unicorn Overlord, it is high time that we talk about the hero himself, Alain. Now, unlike Lex, who we covered previously, Alain is a sword and board, well, not fighter class, but fighter in the general sense, that you can really trust to hold the front line from the very first moment that you gain control of him. Obviously, you have him from the very beginning of the game, and his unique class Lord gives him a lot of advantages, especially in the early game when on the defensive. You're not looking to Alain for offense here, not when you've got classes like Knights and Sellswords and Griffin Knights and Wizards and House Carls and all sorts of other fun stuff that can do the damage for you. No, Alain is going to stand in front of his allies, say, "You will not pass me, villain," and make sure that they don't. We're going to do a couple of things in this video today. We're going to go through Alain's stat set and why it makes him such a capable combatant, his skills and showing why they're so defensively oriented and why that's kind of the way you're going to want to build Alain in the early game, and then some use cases, squads, some mock battles, and some other footage, all that type of good stuff, some equipment, you know, the general gist. Starting off with that stat set and use case, we can see here Alain has a very balanced set of stats, perhaps unsurprisingly, given the fact that he is a main character. Nothing lower than a C in any of his stats, with Bs and higher everywhere else. He is an all-rounder, and it shows. Notably, his physical and magical attack are two of the three stats that he has C rank in, as well as his crit rate. So that right there should tell you, Alain isn't really built to be out here slaying fools. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't deal decent damage, he does, but it's not his primary focus. Instead, we can look at his HP, his physical defense, his magical defense, his evasion and guard rate in particular, and his good initiative. This is a man who is ready to take a beating, and you can tell from the way he's dressed, right? He's got the shield, he's got the sword, he's got the good plate armor. It's a good setup, and you can trust him to really be able to handle things. Looking over at his skills, we can see how this is absolutely capitalized on. He starts off with the ability Lean Edge, which allows him to attack a single enemy, recovering 25% HP if the attack hits, and another 25% HP if the target is defeated. It's a solid 100 physical potency for one action point. Very simple, very effective. Again, fighters wish that they had an attack right off the bat that allowed them to just recover HP on attacking. That's why I like to give the Sanguine Blade to Lex, because it basically gives him Lean Edge. At level 10, you'll pick up Cavalry Slayer, allowing you to attack a single enemy, inflicting AP and PP-1, and Guard Seal if the target is cavalry. Very solid attack, again, 100 physical potency. Same use case as Lean Edge, but allowing you to really put the kibosh on cavalry units, which is good because infantry otherwise have a little bit of a hard time against cavalry. So it's nice to have a little bit of a counterplay built in there. Now, the two important things that we have going on here, and the two skills you're going to be seeing him utilize the most, Noble Guard and Luminous Cover. Noble Guard you start with at level 1. It costs 1 PP to activate, and it activates before being hit by a physical attack. You block an enemy attack with Medium Guard, grants the user plus 20% defense, and the user plus 1 PP if the user has 50% HP or less. So, this is where we can already begin to see. We've got big guard rate. With the way I've got Alain set up, 51%. We'll go into that in a minute, as well as 35 evasion. So on the stats, already pretty dodgy, pretty tanky, and we're only at level 10. Add in the boosts from Noble Guard and the fact that you actually get your PP refunded if you're at 50% HP or below, and you can see where Alain is suddenly going to become very difficult to bring down, even if the enemies land a couple of hits on him. Then we can look over here at Luminous Cover, which synergizes very well with Noble Guard, activates before an ally is attacked, cover an ally with a Medium Guard, grant that ally plus 20% defense. So now we find ourselves in a scenario. Say you're 50% HP or below. You Noble Guard. You suck up the hit. You get your plus 20% defense boost. The enemy says, all right, well, attacking that guy didn't work. Let's go for somebody else. Luminous Cover. Guard them. Another plus 20% defense for that ally. You absorb the hit. Keep on trucking. This combination, along with Lean Edge, means that Alain can take a alarming amount of punishment and cover his allies and himself in the process. It's really nice, and there's not much that you need to do to make this work. Like, you can set some specific conditions for skills and everything, of course, but right off the jump, this just functions. Finally, at this point, he has 2 Valor skills. His Valorous Order increases damage dealt by 20%, reduce damage taken by 20%, and grant First Strike to all allied units within range. This is the finisher. It costs a whopping 3 Valor, which is nothing to sneeze at. That is a lot, especially if you've been deploying all of your units over the course of the battle. But if you can pull it off to help you finish off a big boss, absolutely massively helpful. The skill that I like more is Royal Order, only costs 2 Valor points, and it increases the XP earned by an allied unit by 100%. This is just a good finisher, right? You slap this on someone who's about to finish off the boss, they get a huge XP boost, get stronger for the next fight, it's good stuff. You don't always need to be using it, because you will wind up hitting XP caps, depending on how you're proceeding through the world, but when you're able to use it and get a nice boost for one of your ace squads, nothing to sneeze at. Nothing to sneeze at. We, of course, also do have the Leader Effect Morale boost, which, as far as we've seen thus far, is unique to Alain and his Lord class. Gain more Valor points when defeating enemy units. So, it is in your best interest to have Alain in a squad that is going to be able to clear enemies fairly regularly, so you can build Valor up faster. We'll talk about what the build is that I have going on. You can see here my preferred ace unit for Alain that I've been using in my most recent run that gets the job done more often than not. So, we're able to get that morale boost triggered pretty often, and I certainly like it. His class type is, of course, Sword, Shield, and Infantry. That should be fairly obvious, with a mobility of 100 and a stamina of 6. And that stamina of 6 is really nice. It's really important, because this build, especially the way I use Alain, and the way I recommend you use him in the early game, he's going to be fighting a lot. His squad is very resilient, and he's very adept at sitting in a choke point or in front of a group of enemies and whittling them down slowly over time, and then suddenly executing them once their HP gets low enough. So you're going to need a lot of stamina for that. Preferably, you're going to want to be on a bridge or another point where you can hold without losing stamina, but if you're in a position where you can't, having that 6 stamina, nice. As far as your loadout is going to be concerned, this is one of those situations where Alain likes more all-rounder equipment, in my opinion, as opposed to the magical swords that I recommend you give characters like Lex and your other fighters, because Alain doesn't really want those different attacks. He can use them, sure. He's not going to not enjoy having the Sanguine Blade draining extra HP for him over Lean Edge, or being able to deal big magic damage with the Runic Blade, or being able to poison things. Sure, like, those aren't bad. But the thing about Alain is his core skill set doesn't need them. He does not need to replace his Cavalry Slayer or his Lean Edge, he just needs to use them. And so a weapon that doesn't give extra abilities, but that maybe gives good stats, that's what we're going to be looking at. As such, I have the Templar gear on him. This is actually stuff that we yoinked off of Joseph at the beginning of the game, and Alain uses it very well. The Cavalry Sword, or the Templar Sword, I should say, giving +1 physical defense and +5% guard rate, as well as a nice boost of 15 to his physical attack. This means that Alain is still able to deal pretty good damage, even at this point in the game where I'm at near the end of the demo. He has very good damage output, nothing like Executioner level or anything, but very respectable. And he also has the Templar's Shield, giving 5 physical defense, 20% guard rate, plus 25% guard efficiency, and plus 20% HP recovery. This does synergize with Lean Edge, as well as any other healing that he receives. So, as you can already see, this is part of the reason that Alain is so tanky. And this is not particularly difficult gear to get your hands on. Again, even if you don't want to take it off of Joseph, you can start buying this stuff from the Divine Shard shop as soon as you first meet Oclise. So it's not very difficult to start acquiring, and it works very well on a tanky build for Alain like this. Finally, of course, we do have his Ring of the Unicorn, giving him +5 max HP and another +10% guard rate. And again, I mentioned it at the top of the video, but looking at our evasion, looking at our guard rate here, and you'll have been seeing some footage on screen as I've been talking about this, Alain blocks and dodges so often. It's kind of insane. For someone who is as well armored as he is, who is a sword and board fighter, he's jumping out of the way of attacks seemingly just as often as he's blocking attacks, which is obviously very, very helpful. So if he dodges an attack, he doesn't need to burn PP to use Luminous Cover or Noble Guard. He doesn't need to worry about trying to heal up if he just avoids the attack entirely. So very capable. Very, very capable. Now, that said, of course, Alain, not a one-man army. If you want him to be able to kill stuff so that you can get your morale boost, get extra valor, you're going to need a squad that is set up to help you to do that, and that's what we have going on here. This is not the most offense-oriented squad, but because of knights, doesn't necessarily need to be. Let's talk about Clive. Now, Clive is going to be getting his own video since he is absolutely one of the strongest early game units that you can get, if not the strongest early game unit outside of Joseph. But Clive here in particular is fulfilling a few different roles. He has True Thrust from the Unwavering Spear, allowing him to pick off scouts. Very important because that is not something that Alain is capable of doing at all. So you really need Clive to be able to punch through and take out a dangerous thief if he's absorbing a lot of attacks. Then, of course, we have Wild Rush, very powerful knight ability. Attack a column of enemies with a piercing strike, inflicts stun. There's a lot of damage that's going to come out of this, stunning enemies, making it so that they can't take their actions in the order that they want to take them in. Really good. It potentially allows you to clean them up later on. And then, of course, the classic, the very starter ability that knights have, which is just insane, Assaulting Lance. Attack a single enemy, grant the user +1 AP if the target is defeated. At this point, Clive actually has less initiative than my Alain, so Alain can go, hit something with lean edge, weaken it, Clive can come in, finish it off, get another round of attacks, and if that was that frontliner that we were able to bring down with this, then that means that the squishy backline is open, and there's just going to be Assaulting Lances all over the place, which turns out really, really nice. The only other thing that I have on Clive is the Golden Egg here. If you have not seen this, this is a very powerful accessory you can get from a side quest on the starting island that the game starts on if you return to it from the very first port that you can unlock. And this gives you plus 100% gold for any kills that the unit gets. Obviously, since we're going to be trying to get kills with Alain to be able to get more Valor, then having something else that gives us another benefit for kills is very good. And let me tell you, I've made a lot of money off of this squad. It's a very nice way to go. If you have sold the Golden Egg to get the boost of 30,000 gold, that's respectable. I understand it. However, in the full release of the game, I think it will absolutely behoove you to hold on to it and make use of this increase in gold with an ace kill squad. For the entirety of the game, you're going to see far more returns. So a little bit of a tip for you there. I'd say hold on to that. Now, two things that we have going on here to help out Alain's defensive capabilities. We have a Shaman, literally just base Shaman. Recruited her. Didn't change a thing. No extra gear, no extra abilities. She hasn't even learned her next skill, Offensive Curse, yet. But she doesn't need it. Why? It's because of what Shamans do. First off, she has Passive Curse. Inflicts -1 PP and -10 initiative on a row of enemies. So she's going to just hit a big clump of enemies. You can have her just do her own targeting, or you can set it to the row with the most enemies, whatever you prefer. Reduce their initiative, guarantee, or nearly guarantee, that Alain and then Clive are going to go first, get the killing chain going, and she's also going to make it so that they're not nearly as capable of either guarding, evading, healing, etc., etc. Very good stuff. Then we come down here to Quick Curse, activates before an enemy uses an attack skill, inflicts attack -20% for a single enemy's next attack, and inflicts critical seal. So, say there's a big scary gladiator, or a knight, or something else that's highly damaging that is about to come in swinging on Alain. Yeah, you know, he can use his guard and everything, but still, if they get a big crit, if they have a lot of damage, might punch through and deal more damage than you're ready to deal with. That's where your Shaman comes in. You get a good Quick Curse in there, completely shatters their ability to deal any damage. Alain is able to tank it, and then heal right back up. It's very powerful, and that's, again, before we even get into Offensive Curse, which inflicts physical attack -50% and magical attack -50% on a row of enemies. If you're not worried about a group that's fast or has powerful support abilities, you can just drop this on them once you get your Shaman to level 10, and I mean, Alain is just going to be laughing all the way to the bank because he's never going to take any damage for the rest of that fight. Let me tell you. And then finally, just in case you do take some damage, I have slapped a Cleric in here. I do not always need her. There will be times where I choose to swap out for a Wizard or a Griffin Knight or even another regular Knight, Sellsword. There's a number of different options that have higher damage output if you want to ensure that you're getting more kills faster with Alain's unit. But some of these later game fights in the demo are pretty nasty, and I really needed a good defensive squad on the front line to be able to tank and hold things off. So I slapped the Cleric in to make sure that we could do just that. If you're not familiar with how Clerics work in Unicorn Overlord, well, boy howdy, let me tell you, they are real strong. Much like our Shaman, I have not changed anything about this Cleric. I just hired her and slapped her into the squad, and she's been performing admirably. The only two things we need to worry about here are her basic heal and her quick heal. Regular heal restores moderate HP to an ally. More often than not, this is going to be Alain because he's probably going to be the one getting hit first. And Quick Heal activates after an ally is hit by an attack, restores minor HP to an ally. Same thing, more often than not, this is going to pop on Alain the very first time that he gets hit. Sometimes it could be overkill because, of course, he can heal with his own lean edge and all that type of stuff. But, again, if you're feeling a little bit threatened by a particularly powerful offensive squad, then having this extra healing on hand absolutely can be beneficial. And it's nice for boss squads as well, because it's less likely that Alain will get burst down by some insanely overinflated stat-wise monster. Then, of course, once everyone is gone and HP has been missing, then heal the lowest HP target. Boom, done. You probably want to switch this to lowest HP target, by the way, but it hasn't really been too much of an issue for me thus far. Little optimizations, you know how it is. And that's the long and short of using Alain in the early game. Seriously, slap some good tanking gear on him. You don't even need to change out his accessory. The Ring of the Unicorn works perfectly well for him in the early game, and just watch him go. Really, the thing that you want more than anything else is a squad that is going to allow him to secure kills so you can use your morale boost to get more Valor faster. That has been one of the most limiting factors for me on Expert, and using this build on Expert has been really good because it has allowed me to kind of overcome that a little bit. The number of enemy squads you have to carve through sometimes just to get a single Valor point to deploy another unit, let alone trying to stock up enough to use some of the big Valor abilities that become absolutely crucial as you progress further into the game. This has helped with that immensely because it's really hard to do sometimes on Expert otherwise. Take this build out, try it out, see what you think. Do variations of it. Let me know about it in the comments. Strike up that discussion. I'm always happy to have it with y'all. And make use of the mock battle feature. Now that I've finally gotten to a fairly progressed point in the demo, I've actually been taking some time, setting up different squads, playing around with stuff in mock battles. It's a good way to figure out what works, what doesn't, and start to kind of pick up on different synergies and things like that it's harder to see if you're just sitting here staring at the menus. So I highly recommend that you do that. Now, of course, as we progress further into the game, we do know that Alain promotes into a mounted knight, that he gets some more offensive capabilities with some AoE attacks, things like that. So he may not always be your defensive frontliner option, but in the early game, I definitely think that that's the way you're going to want to use him. And I mean, hey, if you've got a bunch of squishies in a squad that really needs some protecting, Alain might be your very best choice for them. Unlike a Hoplite, he's not going to be vulnerable to high damage anti-armor attacks. He's going to have slightly better magic resist. He's able to heal himself. And unlike the weaknesses of a fighter, he's able to still deal damage, heal himself without the benefit of other items, generally be a little bit more dodgy, a little bit faster. So he's going to be one of your preeminent tanks for a very good long time. There's some good synergies as well that we didn't even have the chance to talk about here. Alain with Thieves can be awesome because they can evade. Then when they're going to get hit after their PP runs out, then he can guard for them. Nice synergies there. They can poison, all that type of fun stuff. There's just a lot of different ways to use our hero here, and that's nice to see. It's always a shame when you have like a Fire Emblem 6 situation where you have Roy, who should be at least capable, but because of the way his class is set up and the way the game progresses, he's kind of useless for a long time. Not the case here. And, you know, he's not out here just cutting people in half all the time either, which can get a little boring. He's just a solid defensive fighter. So, that said, though, I'm going to wrap this one up here. I hope you all enjoyed. I hope you learned something. Not a particularly difficult use case here, but it's always good to highlight some basics anyway. My name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.